Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Camille Moore with Connect, and I'd like to thank you for tuning into Room Block Poaching, Deceptive Practices, and Consumer Fraud with Michael Owen. I apologize for the delay in the presentation. We had a slight technical difficulty in the office, but we're going to keep it going. So before we get started, there's just a few housekeeping notes on the platform. You can type in your questions for Michael in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen or via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We love for this to be an interactive session, so please send in questions throughout the webinar. A recorded version of this session will be available on demand on our website, where you can find additional on-demand webinars for any of you needing last-minute credit hours before CMP testing. Yes, you're able to watch our sessions on demand and still receive credit. For everyone joining us live today, the credit is approved by the EIC for 1 hour towards CMP IS Domain C risk management. We'll email your certificate tomorrow evening. For any of you future viewers watching this session on demand and not live, please email me directly at cmoore@connectmeetings.com to receive your certificate. I'll share more information about our upcoming webinars at the end of the program, but let's go ahead and get started. Before I introduce Michael, you will notice a map on your screen of some of our upcoming events for 2019. If you have any questions, please contact my coworker, Mark Wong, Senior Director of Sales at mwong@connectmeetings.com. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Michael Owen. With decades of experience as a provider of entertainment and event management services, Michael shares a wealth of knowledge gained through his career in the business events industry. His company, Event Genuity LLC, produces business events throughout North America. Michael is a frequent presenter at industry conferences and learning institutions, speaking on what's now and what's next in meetings and events. He has published articles in Meetings and Conventions, Convene, Meeting Mentor Magazine, Connect Magazine, Planet Tennessee, The Meeting Professional, Meeting Focus, and Successful Meeting Magazine. Michael was recently awarded the MPI Rise Award for Meetings Industry Leadership and was recognized for Lifetime Achievement by MPI Tennessee. Michael, welcome. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thanks, Camille, and good work on that tech glitch. That's something that I think all of us probably understand. It just happens at the most unfortunate times. Hi, everybody. I'm glad today that you've joined us. Poaching is something that we know has been out there for many years. When the Apex Commission started to look at it here, I believe it was 2014, we discovered there was a lot of anecdotal evidence, but not a lot of research on poaching. And it was largely around room block poaching, which we're going to spend some time on today, but the current trends are telling us that there are more things that are being poached, and the deception of deceptive practices, etc. So we're going to talk about that. This is brought to you by the Events Industry Council Industry Insights Group. It's a signature program of the Events Industry Council, and it's formerly the Apex Initiative. This is the group, the Apex documents, all of that work is still around. This is the group that's charged with keeping it update and doing more think tank work on defining next and best practices. So here's the results from 2018. 2014, we had a summit in Las Vegas where we talked about that. There's material on the events industry site. There's more a deeper dive than we can do in an hour, but that's there. So this one was 535 event pros, 78% planners, 10% suppliers, and 12% others. So I wanted to go back through this one just to touch base and update you on where we were a year ago as to where we found we were this year. 77% of the people affected are exhibitors and attendees, right? I think that you guys, we began a little text chain here discussing who has been affected and who hasn't. This information gives us a clearer snapshot of what we have. 63% of our meetings were targeted for room block poaching. It affects all room rates, all block sizes, all industries, and all planner size. Now, when we first started this, the assumption was, and the discussion in all of the articles that we could find and all of the information that was out there regarding room block poaching up until that time, was the assumption was that it was affecting room block pickups. It was affecting, excuse me, I forgot the word, the attrition. And attrition was the thing that we talked about all the time when we were talking about room blocks. What we found is that it was much more of a nuisance than an actual hit to the room blocks. Time away from planning was the first. Attendee dissatisfaction and brand reputation were the three main things that really affected, that people said they were affected by. 83% said the misrepresentation resulted in booking outside the block. 43% said reservations and credit card fraud went hand in hand. And 32% said obtaining inventory through misrepresentation. Trademark infringement was only 22%. Unauthorized use and selling of data, which is something we're going to talk more about a little bit later, is 27%. If in a perfect world, if everything was trademark infringement, which again we'll talk about later, we could enforce some things. But here's what else. This is the first time we began to look at what else is being poached. We set out to measure so we could just have a baseline. Exhibitor services, 13%, AV and production, shipping, transportation, show publication, advertising, decor, and decorator. Now, I know probably most of you are interested in the room block poaching, but I think as an industry we should keep our eye on what's coming. And one of the big issues, we'll have a second part of our survey, second part of the session, is a survey that addresses these ancillary events that are being targeted. So what's working in room block poaching? A single system for registration and housing, where you do your housing and registration at the same time. Information on the website about poachers. I'll share some examples of that a little bit later. Removing or restricting access to participant lists. This becomes even more important in the face of the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, that you've heard so much about. Appropriate data use. You know, who has your data besides you? And you could say your DMC, you could say your app developer. So everybody in your supply chain needs to understand the importance of protecting that data. And at this point, I think California's law, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, their data privacy law goes into effect soon. So to mitigate, inform your folks, offer incentives. I know one of the organizations, can't remember which one, but you register for the conference, and if you're then taken to the site to register for your hotels, and if you register there, $200 comes off your registration fee. I found that to be very attractive. Integrate your registration with your hotels, alerts to your members. Again, I'll share that later. Audits, ask people what you're hearing. Trademark infringement, which, as you saw, was probably way down the list of what people were concerned about. But if they infringe on your trademark, you can get them. Limit who gets the list. Make sure who you give permission to, contracts. Make sure in all of your contracts you have this information about data privacy. Salting and seeding, that's putting in the list. This is what you can do. You can salt the list by putting a spoofed, for lack of a better term, email that comes to you that is not your company, so you can see what's going on, or one that's just kind of out of the blue. Same thing with seating, is that you can put this information in your lists to track, so you don't have to wait for your attendees to tell you there's a problem. You can spot it right away. By the way, this is a lot of information in a real small space and a real small set of time. All of this stuff is in depth on the Events Industry Council website, and I'll share that information with you a little bit later. For the suppliers, you got to have training. You know, your reservation staff has to understand that this is a problem, what procedures are in place, comparing calendars, watching the leisure and transient role, and restricting dates if you know you've got groups coming in. So both of us can send cease or desist. That's probably the number one. I think we'll look at the numbers in a minute, but number one way to address this, and maybe the least effective. Report to the hotel. Let me say this: the hotels don't want poaching either. They want a full house, but they don't want poaching. Alert the attendees, which may be as effective as you can get right at this present time. Research access. How did they get it? Who got it? How did they get the information? Report to the authorities. Look at your privacy regulations and policy. This is a good time to review your data privacy policies and what you do and how you do it, because of not only the poaching portion of it, but with better controls, which is what GDPR is meant to do, give you better or require better controls over the data you hold and who uses it and how they use it. This is a great time to find out, to plug those leaks, inform the credit cards and inform the authorities. And this one may be hard to see, but you make sure that people are aware of phishing scams, because that's what these are. Once somebody has your list and they send out something that says the block is sold out or I can get you a room at a cheaper rate, they have now phished. They've used your name, they've used your event title, everything, most of them, everything but your logo. They use your logo, that's trademark infringement. Excuse me, I hit the wrong button. Something is not working.
Do you need me to advance the slides, Michael?
I got it back.
Okay.
All right. So the issue is poaching competition? Could be, depending on how they go about it. It may be on the borderline, it may not be. But it's competition, it's deception and fraud. We'll talk more about that in a second. Or is it legal or illegal? You know, so much of it is annoying, wrong, but it's not necessarily illegal. So we still have to figure out how to deal with all of these. So event planners and owners, attendees and exhibitors, hotels, we all have a stake in working together to get this right. And that's where the information that you'll see here, or if you want to take a deeper dive on the site, would go to. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a registration for a conference in Vilnius, Lithuania, 2016. This is a spoofed site for the same one. They used the colors, they used the tag, they used the name. I would argue that their site the spoof site may have looked better than the others. So when the organizer of this program discovered that this was going on, immediately they sent out to everybody, look, we've been hit with this. We need to let you know. Please go back to the site and see what you can do. And this is what they got. So what these folks will do is they will set up a spoofed website. They will take the money, then they'll close the site and go open somewhere else with another conference. It's insidious. Last year, this was 2017, there was a legislative effort to stop online booking scams. It was literally done regarding, if you think about looking for a hotel on, say, Google, and you pop in the name of the hotel, I hope we've all gotten smart enough to realize that the first 3, 4, or 5 that look like official are not official, and we go to the direct site. But that's what this was meant to do. That's what this bill was meant to do, is stop consumer fraud. And it was done by the American Hotel and Lodging Association. And the Events Industry Council came together with them, and we changed the language in the bills to include room block poaching. If we could get it defined and into the law as consumer fraud, we would have more. Oh, thanks, Roger. My buddy Roger Rickard on. There is a new bill in 2019. This one has been carried forward for two legislative, actually three legislative sessions. It's got legs. So I should have Roger step in here and talk in a minute. This is what it was, right? This is who sponsored it. These are are where they are. That's the bill number for the 18 bill. What I will do is I will update, get that to Camille and the team. I will update what the current numbers are. But this would be a great start, another piece of a toolbox that we could go into. If you see your representative, I see a couple of mine there, get on the phone and call them. But don't be silent. I hear Roger cheering in the background. This is an area where we talk as an industry about advocacy. Okay, advocacy can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but here's an instance where if we know as an industry that there is legislation before Congress that has been stalled through 2 different Congresses already, or 3, then you can call your representative. It doesn't matter where you are. Inform them that you're looking at the number. Let's see, let's go back here. Don't know that. Here we can. That you're looking at House Resolution 2495, the Stop Online Booking Scams, and you would like them to support it. So here's a chance for us to speak up and make a difference. If we don't, it's going to linger and linger and linger with all of the dysfunction that's in Washington and all of the animosity back and forth. This is something I think that most every politician could get behind if they were aware that there was a need. So I would urge you to do that. Beware of phishing scams. That's what this is meant to stop, is the phishing scams. This is about consumer, 15 million bogus hotel rooms every year for consumers. Our percentages are equally high, and that's why we want to keep going. Complain. This is the Better Business Bureau. This is one of the groups, Exhibitors Housing Management, and they got an F. Now, do they really care when they close down and open somewhere else? Maybe, maybe not, but you're going to have to use every tool in the quiver. Here's another example where this organization decided to list, they had been hit by this many, by that bulleted list that you see there, by this many organizations or companies that were selling rooms for their conference. So they let everybody know up front. This one was very clear, a warning for exhibitors, because exhibitors, again, we see in the numbers, are the most effective. In addition to the notices, include an official vendor seal. This is something that's great, that book your rooms through here. Offer to buy list, find out and alert your members. The thing is, don't wait until your folks call you. Be proactive. Salt those lists. Post warnings that we showed earlier, instruct your registration and housing so it becomes seamless. Now, 2018, there was a lot of cheering around the meetings industry about a judgment that the U.S. Poultry and Egg Association won against room block poachers. From the article, it says deceptive advertising practices used in an effort to steal lodging services, and the court awarded U.S. Poultry $750,000 in damages and ordered the company to pay legal fees. This was hailed at the time as a great step forward in preventing poaching. It there's a caveat to that, though, and that is that this was not poaching that they got nailed for. It was about deceptive practices, deceptive advertising. Okay, so what we want to say is that while there were a couple of instances, and I've got another one for you here. This is the Sci-Hub company that were stealing content. They were taking content and reusing it. In both of these instances, neither of these were actually prosecuted or found guilty of poaching per se. They were found guilty of something adjacent to poaching. Again, we must use every tool in the toolbox. The example of that is, I don't know if you remember, Al Capone. Al Capone, for all the crimes and everything that everyone knows he did but was never prosecuted for, he was sent down on tax evasion. So use every tool in the box, right? Now, just this year, in 2019, just this spring, the Events Industry Council, Exhibitions and Events Mean Business, IAEE, and the Society of Independent Show Organizers, came together because the show organizers are seeing an increase in other types of poaching. Not just rooms, they're still dealing with rooms just like we all are, but they're seeing a variety of other people use that method to get them. Attendee list scams is the number one. Okay, so I attended an MPI conference. Well, this was 3 or 4 years ago. I got home on a Wednesday. On Friday, I got an email from a company selling a list that said, hey, we've got the entire registration list for the MPI World Education Congress. Would you like to buy it? I think it's all 5,500 attendees. The challenge was there were not but 2,500 at the conference. I knew that was bogus. I sent the information to MPI. MPI looked into it. The people that were behind this showed an address in Boca Raton, Florida. Then they gave it to their IT department. IT department found out that the website was in Romania. So, they take these things and make money off them and milk from you guys, milk from all of us. So broadly, 33.4% of all respondents have been affected by attendee list scams. 61% of exhibition organizers have been affected. So whether your show has, or your conference has a hosted buyer or has a trade show or something like that, those are the folks that are most likely being hit. Let's see, it says here, my exhibitors have reported over 70 individual instances of false claims of having my attendee list. I send a cease and desist email, then copy them on an email to the Federal Trade Commission. Brian, thank you. That's a good thing to do. I think you can see a picture emerging that this is all hands on deck, all methods. One is not as successful as using every tool in the toolbox. .28, just under 10%, came aware through active monitoring. Well, couldn't we use the same advice about salting and seeding and about being proactive in managing your mail list? 76+% were informed by their stakeholders. This is an area I think that as planners we could improve on. There are very few meetings or exhibition organizers who are actively monitoring for attendance list scams. Let me tell you another reason why this is important. This is not a session on GDPR, but you've heard GDPR. You know, we spent a year telling everybody their hair was on fire, and now we're trying to tell them how to put it out. But with GDPR, if you're doing business with anybody in the EU, doesn't matter if they're an attendee, a member, if they get a magazine, anything that you do there, you're subject to GDPR laws. And what that means is you have to understand what data you hold, where it's held, how it's used, and who has the authority to use it. And you, as the lead organization, are responsible for that. And think about if you're doing a meeting and you have folks come in, who else needs your list? Well, DMC may need a manifest if they're going to do transportation, right? There's web apps, your app developer. Any of those types of things are run by somebody who's a vendor for you. So you not only do you have to have policies in place, but you have to have the policies in place for them. That's why I said earlier that this is a good time while we're living up to the new California law and GDPR for us to clean up our databases and understand completely how it's used and where it goes. And I think that the ancillary advantage to that is that we'll also be able to plug some holes in this poaching problem. Some lists contain legitimate data. Some are the combination of legitimate data and holy crap. And others, they don't know. Responses thus far have been ineffective, right? 29% were able to get the temporary stop, 60%, 66%, two-thirds didn't work. They just don't stop. They don't care. They know that what they're doing, if not illegal, is definitely unethical, right? So if they're unethical from the beginning, how are they going to respond? By the way, anybody who has any questions, I appreciate everybody popping in. It's very helpful for me and very helpful for us to understand the situation. I'm happy to stop and talk and answer any questions you might have or try to direct you in the right direction. Again, avoid posting detailed lists. Hold on a second. Brian says, these companies are finding our exhibiting company names on our site. We don't list contacts. They go to exhibitors' website. That's right. They go to the exhibitor's website and pull all email addresses, and they can find to send out their poaching emails. This is correct. I have a friend who's an executive in sales for IHG who told me that she gets invitations for conferences she's not planning on attending because she was on last year's list, or because they went through and saw that IHG may be the exhibitor and that she is listed as VP of sales or director of sales. I'm not sure of her title, but she's in global sales. So that's the way it goes, is that it's not always you handing your list out. It's somebody coming onto your list and maybe looking at who. Look, this is a problem I don't know how to solve. And if anybody has a solution, I don't know. It's that for most conferences, if I go to a conference, I would like to know who's attending. I'd like to know who's going to be there. Especially on the exhibitor side, I want to know that my time is going to be worth going, or on the education side. So how do we balance the need to know by legitimate attendees and the risks of that information getting to somebody else? I will tell you that what is going to happen with this particular work is that we're going to come together, I believe it's in October, and then again at IAEE, and begin looking at best practices, just as you saw some recommendations, and those are just the tip of the iceberg. In the earlier piece, it's all on the website, but I think that's what you'll see. As soon as we have those up, we'll let you know, and we'll send it back to Connect and let the folks, Camille and the folks at Connect, know so that we can distribute that while there's more information there. I think that you will find that some of the tools, the white paper, the recommendations that exist for room block poaching will help here as well. But we need more work on this, and we need to all be more proactive. So now this is some information we heard back from in 2019. Now bear in mind what I showed you at the beginning was the 2018 survey, right? So on room block poaching, we know what that is, right? Disproportionately affecting exhibitions. Now this is all responses. Nearly 50% of us have been affected by room block poaching. My question would be, how many more were affected and don't know it in a minor way? Let's say that somebody was doing 4 or 5 rooms or what have you, and the people just went through and the rooms were there, etc. The question is, how many of these kind of sneak under the radar? But the exhibition organizers have been affected 2/3 of the time. Most effective strategy is the alert. Remember I showed you alerts on the first earlier in the presentation? Being proactive on the alerts, getting that information out there, printing the names of the potential poachers as the most effective strategy, and 98% of those are using them. Sharing the information with other stakeholders, we talked about that earlier, is viewed as the second most effective strategy. That's making sure that all of your partners are aware that this is a problem, your hotel suppliers, that you address it up front, that you talk to them about their processes, who else is going to be on site, what about room wholesalers, which has been the issue. Wholesalers are legitimate. Wholesalers, particularly in a place like Las Vegas, where a wholesaler can get a block of room at a particular time and release them. But you have to be able to deal up front with the hotel to know all the conditions that are around you. Again, the hotels don't want this. Poaching is not an advantage for the hotels either. Third most is that informing credit card fraud departments. It's used very, very slightly. I think this is where the consumer fraud piece, we talked about the legislation, comes in. I think this is where if we have legislation that clearly defines room block poaching, just as they're going to define the websites on Google to the consumer, if they define it as consumer fraud, we now have teeth. So if you can prove fraud, if you can prove that they've done that, you can go back to the credit card companies. All right. Exhibitor services poaching is on the rise. 2018, we had 13%. Now, this is broad meetings industry. This is CMPs. This is through the help of media, like folks like Connect, to get the word out, to get this data. 2019, it had jumped by 5 points. 2019's exhibitions only, 33%. Now, what is exhibitor services poaching? Well, if I'm exhibiting in a program, I'm expecting a package from somebody that tells me where to deliver my stand, where to sign up for electricity, etc. That's what's happening. People are getting solicited for exhibitor services. What else? AV and production. You come in, you want to do, let's say you want to do something in the stand if you're exhibiting, or you get the individuals is going to want some sound or that sort of thing in the exhibit. Somebody sends out a thing that says we're the official AV, and you get that. Is that healthy? No. Shipping and transportation, show publication ads that go nowhere. This one was kind of stunning that we're hearing that. is that the idea of stealing, in essence, what should rightfully belong to someone else is going to somebody who's just clever enough, and I hate to use the term clever with bad actors, but they truly are. The minute they're like whack-a-mole. The minute you find them, they're gone. They're shut down and open. I can remember an instance when we were first looking at poaching, where there was a company. It was in Los Angeles, and the address they had in Los Angeles, it was on one of the prominent streets. It may have been Sunset, if I'm not mistaken. So, out of curiosity, I Googled the address, and it was a Chinese restaurant that was out of business. So these people are not honorable. They have no qualms about closing, moving, taking your money, and going. The only hope when a poacher, particularly when we're talking about rooms, comes in, that there's going to be a room at the end of that rainbow. Because sometimes there's not. Sometimes the money's gone. If you think back to the example I used for the program in Vilnius, you had people who paid up front for hotel rooms that didn't exist. Or you've had instances where somebody says, hey, the block is sold out, but we've got a block of 23 rooms or 25 rooms at X Hotel, and the X Hotel is nowhere near the shuttle stop. So the nightmare stories that we've heard are just amazing. Let's see. I think we need the hotel. Sarah says, I think we need to hold hotels responsible for terminating business with companies that provide legit rooms to these wholesalers who behave in illegal or unethical methods. This is a good question for somebody like Mike Dominguez, or somebody's in it. It's not a question, but a good statement. Wholesalers are legitimate. It's people that somehow take advantage of that. And how do you prevent that? By going to your hotel in the first place. And Sarah, in a sense, holding them responsible, but holding them responsible up front, not waiting till something happens. So telling them up front that this is a problem for us. This is a problem we've seen in our last 2 or 3 conferences. This is what we need to do. We need to make sure that nobody is selling rooms or soliciting rooms to our people, and if they are, they can't get rooms. So again, this is why we need to have the hoteliers involved in this problem. I keep trying to advance my PowerPoint, and it's not in my PowerPoint. It's on this platform. Excuse me. So poaching is also involved with event sponsorships. So, suppliers are looking for every edge they can get. If they have the budget and the time, they want to sponsor. They want to be visible. They want to do everything they can do to be even more visible. And this one gets them. It comes in sponsorship. If you're not looking at the official sponsorship page, you might have a 5,000 or, I don't know how they run them, platinum, gold, whatever. And for this, you get X, Y, and Z. Send a check, send the money, and it's gone. So that's the state of the industry that we have right now. There's more information for you guys at insights.eventscouncil.org/industry insights. This is work that has been done over the last 5 years on poaching. There's a privacy and poaching white paper. There's a sort of a best practice checklist. And there's a variety of other resources, including a list of states' attorneys general, where you can go and get more information. So that's where we are. Rest assured that the industry, thank you, Camille. Rest assured that the industry is looking at this. The Industry Insights Group from the Events Industry Council is reviewing the information to make sure all of the white papers and information that they have listed, not only that, but all of the old Apex documents are all updated. I won't say they're all updated, but they're in the process of being updated, but to make sure that that's done on a regular basis, and new information as it comes out. Well, here's a question. You mentioned going to the hotels up front and let them know it's been a problem. What solutions would a hotel offer? Well, if they have not informed their reservation staff that this could be a problem, right? There's a variety of things, and a lot of it is in the research. A lot of it is in the research that you have, is that if we're all walking in with blinders on and we don't address it, I don't know. I'm not a hotel guy, so I don't know exactly what they can do, but they can certainly train their staff. They can certainly put processes in place that says be watching for X, Y, or Z. And this is a great question for a hotel. And frankly, it's why, as a matter of fact, thank you, Jesse. What I'll do is I will take this back to the committee and say, here's a question that I got on the conference. How about an answer? Why don't we hear from the hotels about exactly what you can do to help prevent this problem? And here we are, folks. I'm sorry, I kind of rushed because I want to get you out of here in time, and I hope I didn't wear you out just blabbing. It's kind of weird not having you stand up and yell at me, but here's your chance. You have any questions, any comments that would help each other? Listen, we all have to come together to solve this. This is not something that I can do sitting here going there. Sarah says, what about providing the list of unethical companies to the hotel and tell them not to do business with these companies? I think that's absolutely there. I think where it gets into a weird place, I don't know how prominent wholesalers are in places that are not Las Vegas and Orlando, right? But they are prominent in those places, and there's two of the main meeting destinations in the country. So there is a legitimate job for a wholesaler to play. The wholesaler is not selling rooms to your people. Somebody's getting blocks and selling them instead. But you're right, Sarah. In fact, you want to be on the committee? If those agencies don't have rooms to sell, then that helps. Everything helps. Anybody else? If you would like to be involved in the effort, send me a note. I'm going to put my stuff up here next. There's my email address. You can barely see it, m.owen@eventgenuity.com. Now, I'm a former chair of Apex, and I was chair when we went to the Events Industry Insights Group. Very well connected with the EIC. I don't have all of the answers. I'm very curious to find out more, and I learn every time. And thank all of you, Brian, Sarah, everybody else who commented today, because this is information I will take back to the groups about what we're thinking. It's easy to say. How do I phrase this without getting in trouble? You know, you go to industry conferences and we like to touch the latest shiny stuff, whatever shiny. It's easy to say that we've been talking about room blocks and room block poaching, and we've been talking about this for years. I've already been to sessions on that. We finally have some hard data that tells us who's affected, how they are affected. I think that what we have to do, particularly in an instance like this, and particularly where the problem is growing in other areas besides room blocks, and we know it, I think we have to keep a laser eye on the problem of poaching, whether it be rooms, whether it be sponsorships, whatever it might be, is that we really need to stay on top of methods to use. Don't forget about the bill. And Camille, I will get with either with Roger, or I will get on the Senate and Congress side and get the current numbers and information for the Stop Online Fraud bit. Here's what you can do.
Okay.
Here's what, the minute you have that, call your councilman, call your congressman, call your senator. If they're not aware of the bill, tell them what the bill is. Here's the number. Here's where it lives, and I want you to vote on it. That would be quite helpful. Guys, sorry for the glitch that we had earlier. Sorry for kind of rushing through this, but I was trying to be aware of your time and the ending time, even though we lost a few minutes at the beginning. Camille, I'm happy to share the deck. We can do that after through him, or you can send me an email or send it to Camille, and I'll make sure that they have it and that we have it following. I'm open to answer any of your questions, or again, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer on most days. If I don't have the answers, I will try to point you to someone who does on this issues. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and I'm going to turn it back over to Camille.
Yes, thank you, Michael, and thank you for sharing a great presentation in the time that we had. I appreciate you keeping account of the time, and thank you for everyone for sticking through this with the technical difficulties. Thank you for your patience. And again, thank you, Michael. And after this webinar concludes, you will be directed to a short survey. If you could fill that out, that'd be great for us to get some feedback and kind of give your input of what type of topics you all would like to see in the future. You can learn about Connect's past and upcoming webinars on all of our websites listed on your screen now. And for everyone joining us live today, the credit is approved by the EIC for 1 hour towards CMP IS Domain C risk management. We will email that certificate tomorrow evening, so be on the lookout for that. It will not come today, it will come tomorrow evening. Again, if you're watching on demand, please email me for your certificate. It will not come to you automatically. If you have any questions, you can email me at cmoore@connectmeetings.com. My address is on the screen right now. And we all hope you'll join us again on September 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for an informative session on contract negotiations with Connect speaker Heather Reed, which is sponsored by Grand Wayne Convention Center. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.